Thank you all for coming. We're here to announce arrests in the murder of Deborah Fox from 2024. As you probably recall, on February 27, 2024, Wilkes-Barre City Police uncovered the remains of Nicole Cuevas, who was buried in a basement at 142 Carlisle Street, a case that has come among media circles to be known as the House of Horrors. That house, as you also know, was previously owned by Deborah Fox, who later went missing. In the Nicole Cuevas murder, Wilkes-Barre Police and Luzerne County detectives arrested Faith Beamer, Jason Race, William Wolf, Sarai Doyle, and Desiree Lynette, all of whom were arrested on homicide charges. Thereafter, Wilkes-Barre Police heard from Deborah Fox's daughters that she hadn't been seen or heard from by them since Thanksgiving of 2023. At some point, she was dropped off at the Host Inn to stay with acquaintances, and those acquaintances were Sarai Doyle and Desiree Lynette. On February 29, 2024, Deborah Fox's daughters officially reported her missing. Since November of 2023, Fox's Social Security income had been getting deposited in her bank account and immediately transferred to a cash app belonging to Desiree Lynette. Wilkes-Barre Police and Luzerne County detectives uncovered witnesses that saw Deborah Fox at the Host Inn with Desiree Lynette and Sarai Doyle. She had bruises on her face. Police uncovered evidence that Lynette was approved for housing in Edwardsville. However, Deborah Fox was not approved to live there. As a result, it's our position that Desiree Lynette would be unable to take Deborah Fox's Social Security income from that point forward. That is what we're alleging is the motivation for this homicide. On March 26, 2024, police find the body of Deborah Fox behind the Host Inn alongside the Cross Valley Expressway in a wooded area. Witnesses that police later locate through the course of their investigation have testified to police that Deborah Fox was regularly starved, made to stand in a corner without her prosthetic leg, beaten repeatedly in the hotel room with hands and fists and also with her own cane. She had her head shaved. Her head was struck against the hotel room wall. She was strangled, and her body was placed on a luggage cart where it was then dumped behind the hotel. Police uncovered evidence in the hotel room that corroborates many of these statements. Thereafter, Desiree Lynette gave different statements to different people about the location of Deborah Fox. Those statements included that she ran away with a boyfriend, that she may have committed suicide, that she moved into a nursing home, that she moved south to live with her sister, and that she was traveling with a truck driver. In investigating both the murders of Nicole Cuevas and Deborah Fox, the police have uncovered a shocking amount of similarities. Both had their heads shaved by Desiree Lynette and Sarai Doyle. Both were falsely accused of stealing from Desiree Lynette. Both were falsely accused of having sexual attractions to their associates. Both were falsely accused of molesting children. Both were starved by Desiree Lynette before their deaths. Both were repeatedly beaten before their deaths. Both defecated themselves, angering Lynette, which police believe is the triggering event that led to their murders. And both of their bodies were disposed of in an attempt to be concealed from the police. Today, Wilkes-Barre detectives and the DA's office detectives filed charges for homicide, theft, and abuse of corpse for the death of Deborah Fox. Those charges are filed against both Sarai Doyle and Desiree Lynette. They are being arraigned before Judge Tom Malloy as we speak. As they are being held without bail on the previous murder charges for Nicole Cuevas, we believe that they will also be held without bail on these murder charges because it includes first-degree murder, which makes them ineligible for bail. As you can see, that this is a long time coming and a long-fought investigation. I would like to especially thank Mayor George Brown, former Chief Coffey, and current Chief Michael Boyle for committing the resources necessary. As you can imagine, it's not easy to keep detectives working around the clock as new cases come in on a case that has now become almost 2 years old. Nonetheless, they were committed to seeing that justice be served for the death of Deborah Fox, And I can't speak highly enough about that dedication and what it means to us prosecutors that have to bring these cases to fruition. I would also be remiss if I didn't thank Lieutenant Detective Matt Stash and Detective Conmee and Detective Andrus, who were spearheaded this along with other members, of course, of the Wilkes-Barre Police Department and also the DA's office detectives, including the man to my left, Detective Chuck Jensen. Naturally, there's a lot more work to do to see that justice is served. This is merely the filing of the charges, and of course the defendants are presumed innocent on these charges unless and until we take them to trial and they're convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. Nonetheless, on behalf of the DA's office and the Wilkes-Barre Police Department, I would like to say how grateful I am to have these charges filed today. I hope that it can bring some measure, or at least begin to bring some measure of closure to the Fox family, who I know have been in continuous contact with the police, seeking answers for the death of their mother. At this point, I'd like to thank you for being here. Before we continue to questions, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor George Brown, who I know has a few comments for you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. First of all, I want to take a few minutes to recognize the great teamwork between the Wilkes-Barre City Police Department and Sam's department, okay, DA's department, and also Detective Jensen. It shows that even 2 years later, these gentlemen are still working hard to solve crimes that are still ongoing. And I just want to say that it's amazing police work that you've seen happen, which comes to this conclusion today. And I'm so proud of the police department that make up the Wilkes-Barre City Police Department, the detectives, the patrol officers, and everyone else that makes up the Wilkes-Barre City Police Department. So, gentlemen, great job. I want to thank retired Police Chief Joe Coffey, our new Police Chief, Mike Boyle, but also everyone else that's involved in this. Gentlemen, you did a wonderful job. I'm very proud of the fact you didn't give up. Almost 2 years later, you still worked hard. And Sam, your team, I want to thank you also for working in cooperation with the Wilkes-Barre City Police Department. It just shows that we're going to keep going after people. You commit a crime, we're going to keep after you. And we're going to make sure that all the resources that we have in the city of Wilkes-Barre, in partnership with the DA's office, we're going to continue to make sure that crimes are investigated, and we're going to continue to bring the people to justice. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to, I'm sorry.
I'm going to call Chief Mike Boyle for some comments. Thank you.
Just briefly, I'd like to state that this is an example of the tenacity of the Wilkes-Barre City Police Department and Luzerne County detectives, district attorneys, detectives. If you take a life in the city of Wilkes-Barre, you will be brought to justice. Time is irrelevant. We work tirelessly and will continue to do so. It's a priority to the city of Wilkes-Barre, and we're going to continue to do that. Thank you.
To the extent I can answer questions without doing harm to the integrity of the ongoing investigation and the prosecution of the case, I will do that if you have any.
Sam, Lynette and her daughter, they're not natives of Luzerne County, but my understanding they came here from Michigan? Is there a connection between Deborah Fox and Victor Manning?
I think that's a two-part question. Are they natives? I do not think so. Is that?
They relocated to Michigan from here.
Okay. And came back. So they are originally from here, relocated to Michigan, and returned. Their connection to Deborah Fox, I think they just met in the course of their activities here in Wilkes-Barre. Yep.
Did Jason Reed's, Faith Beamer, and/or Wolf have any involvement within the murder of Deborah Fox?
We do not have any present evidence that leads us to believe that.
Has there been any decision on whether this is going to be a capital case?
We have not reached a final conclusion on that. I'm sure that'll be forthcoming. As you probably recall, that will be announced at the time of their arraignments, which have not occurred yet. So that's the legal deadline for us to make a final decision.
They just being considered though?
Yes.
And they're at the Luzerne County Courthouse being arraigned right
No, they are being arraigned. They're both in prison on the murder charges for Nicole Cuevas. They're being arraigned by video.
Could you say if Deborah Fox, the victim here, was she present when Cuevas was killed, tortured and killed, back in 2023?
Was she present at the residence where Cuevas was killed? She had been in and out of the residence, but at the time of her murder, I do not believe she was present.
Do you know roughly how long she was out of that home and staying in the hotel for?
They stayed in the hotel, well, they were in numerous places before they moved to the hotel. James, do you remember how?
She would have moved to the hotel, Lynette and Doyle, in the fall of '23.
Okay, so from fall of '23 until February of '24.
Is there an estimated time of death and when Deborah was killed?
Yes.
I know her body was found in March.
Her body was found on March 26th. We believe she was killed a few weeks before that in mid to late February.
And finding Deborah's body, I know there's a lot of witnesses and other defendants. Did one of them say Deborah's body was?
Yes, we had gotten information that her body was there and had searched without finding her on a few occasions until it was actually our detectives that ended up finding the location of the body after speaking to another witness who has not been named in the affidavit, so I couldn't name her here.
Were there any difficulties or challenges connecting these two suspects to Deborah Fox's murder?
I wouldn't say that the difficulties were in connecting them to the murder. The difficulties were in amassing enough evidence to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Will the death penalty be considered at all within this case?
The death penalty is being considered in both cases, yes.
What does the timetable look like now?
The timetable for?
For they're getting right now, and then the process of the trial.
So in a typical case, it's about 12 to 18 months to trial. In this case, we have a number of considerations that the court will have to decide, and along with motions, I'm sure, by both parties. Some of those motions will be whether the trials for Sarai Doyle and Lynette will be consolidated. In other words, whether they'll be tried for the murder of Nicole Cuevas at the same time, whether they'll be tried for this murder at the same time, and whether they both will be tried for both murders at the same time. So if they're tried separately, the court will have to decide which one they believe should go first, and then the second one will come, months later. It will also depend on whether or not they continue to keep the same lawyers, who would then have to get acclimated to both cases to try the second one.
When you details of this case, and as you said, was slugged, hostile horrors, to think that these women potentially endured, torture for this long, just your thoughts on the humanity of all of that and just the details of this case.
Well, as you know, not every murder case is first-degree murder, making it eligible for life without parole, and not every first-degree murder case is a death penalty case. So part of the considerations, the aggravating circumstances that lead us to decide whether or not to seek death is basically torture, and how offensive that torture is. Jurors are reluctant to sentence someone to death for obvious reasons, but in this case, in looking at both of them, these are details, many of which described in black and white do not do them justice. We have many people testifying, more realistically to what these people actually endured. It offended the senses of police officers that have seen some pretty horrible things over the course of 20 or 30 years. So that is obviously something that we take into great consideration, that there are just certain cases that are so offensive that the highest penalty under the law is warranted. And so that's part of the reason we're considering that in these cases. The fact that it happened to more than one victim, it's not just the torture of Nicole Cuevas or the torture of Deborah Fox. They did it to more than one person. So that is another part of the consideration, because another aggravating circumstance is multiple murders.
Is the investigation complete, or are you expecting more charges?
I'm hesitant to ever say that an investigation is complete. If we get more information, more charges can develop. At this time, I know we're continuing to work on these cases to uncover, any other witnesses, any other information. So, no, I wouldn't say that the investigations are complete or closed by any stretch of the imagination.
We spoke with Deborah Fox's daughter probably almost 2 years ago now at this point, to be able to work throughout that time over the past several years and now be able to deliver them the first step of justice. How does that feel?
It feels very good. I know that it's frustrating for family members of victims, and it's frustrating for police officers and prosecutors that we cannot regularly update them with information or, tell them how we are progressing. A big part of that reason, and we've been burned in the past, is that information then gets leaked that shouldn't be out in the public. It gets misconstrued. It allows people to change their stories or conceal evidence. So when we finally get to this point where we can make an arrest and have public information, it's a big relief, and I think it's safe to say for the family members, it's a relief for them to know that after 2 years, the longer it goes, sometimes the harder it gets to prove these cases and to make an arrest. That they, we've had many family members that pass away before they ever get to see justice. So the fact that this is not one of those cases is a big relief to all of us, and that's thanks to the detectives who really did work tirelessly. You're not seeing it in public that they're out there chasing down these leads, but they really were. Every week was something, finding something, talking to someone. So I really commend them and their leadership, and the mayor and Chief Boyle for encouraging them and giving them the resources to do that.
Seth, could you say, you might have said it, maybe I missed it, but Jason Brace, Faith Beamer, and
William Wolf,
are they connected to Deborah Fox's case at all?
they are not. Thanks, everybody.